afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to Q1 2025 Philippine Property Briefing. I am your host, Maricris Sarino-Joson, Senior Director and Head of Office Services, Landlord Representation. We are privileged to have gathered such a distinguished assembly of professionals to engage in a comprehensive discussion on the current state and future prospects of the Philippine real estate market. Colliers, as you already know, is more than pleased to provide you a platform for the exchange of experts' insights, the exploration of innovative strategies, and the fostering of collaborative relationships that will propel our industry forward. Aside from our usual discussion on the performance of the property sector for the first 3 months of 2025, you're in for a real treat. We have invited a special guest, a well-respected leader and visionary in the property sector, to share his insights on a topic he's very passionate about: sustainability in the real estate sector. I urge you to stay for that very exciting discussion. But before anything else, let me acknowledge the partners who made this event possible: Makati Business Club, Philippine Chamber of Commerce, SharePhil, Subdivision and Housing Developers Association, Australia-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce Philippines, British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Healthcare Information Management Association of the Philippines, Organization of Socialized Housing Developers of the Philippines, Billionario News Channel, ANC, The Manila Times, Inquirer Property, Business World, Philippine Star. I know everyone's excited to know how the real estate sector performed in the first quarter of 2025, and we have prepared a packed program today as we will discuss office, residential, and retail segments. So in the next 2 hours or so, we at Colliers will do our best to provide you insights, recommendations, and some assurance that will guide us through 2025. At the end of the session, we would also like you to stay a bit longer for a networking opportunity. Our Colliers team will be here to answer any questions you might have about Colliers services, landlord representation, tenant representation, capital markets and investment services, valuation services, advisory and consultancy, project management, and real estate management services. So with that, let's begin our briefing. 2025 is proving to be anything but boring. In the first 3 months of the year alone, we've seen events that spooked investors, not so positive developments in both the office and residential sectors that will make us doubt the market's post-pandemic recovery. But at the same time, we are seeing really positive signs that the sector is evolving, thriving even. The office sector continues to dodge 20% vacancy despite POGO exodus. Key occupiers are taking advantage of a market that favors them. Developers and investors are seeing the allure of residential projects outside Metro Manila, negating the impact of condo demand in Capital Region. And the retail sector is proving to be even a brighter spot. We're seeing the significant changes in some of the Metro Manila's well-loved malls, the entry of foreign brands, and mall traffic surpassing pre-pandemic levels. While we anxiously watch the local elections unfold, whether a new set of lawmakers will have an impact on the current administration's economic policies come June, we wonder what the rest of 2025 has in store for us.
I'm going to call on my colleague, my friend again, Maricris
Very good.
Sarino,
Job well
who's
done as usual,
fresh
Zoe.
from Japan.
Very comprehensive residential and retail.
Thank you, Maricris.
And I know the retail sector is your favorite among all the sectors.
It is our favorite. Let me clarify that.
So we'd like to ask Kevin to join us here, and the rest of the panelists, led by our Managing Director, Richard Raymundo, Senior Director of Capital Markets Investment Services, Julius Guevara, Senior Director of Advisory Services, Theresa Teodoro, Senior Director of Valuation Services, Paul Ramirez. Also, we're pleased to introduce our very special guest today for our panel discussion. He is the CEO of respected and pioneering developer Neo Office, the chairman of the Philippine Green Building Council, and the trustee and key leader of the Urban Land Institute. Please welcome Mr. Raymond Rufino. So we'd also like to invite everyone here to also ask questions to our panelists and to our guest panelists. Raymond?
So I think something different that we're going to do starting this quarter is we'll be starting to have a developer in our panel, so that gives a balanced view as well on what's happening with the market. So we're fortunate today that we have Raymond here, and at least we have good news for office. So
thanks for having me, Richard. Great to be here.
Yeah. Just to kickstart the conversation, what's happening with Neo in a nutshell first?
Well, first off, I want to say I'm very, very happy with the data that's coming out. We've felt that first quarter of this year was definitely a good start of the year for the office sector. I admit that we're limited to Bonifacio Global City, and we remind ourselves all the time that what happens in BGC does not necessarily reflect what happens in a lot of markets. But it was just really nice for us to be touring tenants again, a lot of first-timers looking to set up shop in the Philippines, companies looking to expand.
So you are
So
seeing that trend.
we are. We definitely felt that. I think for me, it was the companies looking to come to the Philippines that is quite heartening because you have sidewards movement, companies moving from building A in Makati to your building in BGC. That's nice. But what excites me is when you have companies saying, "Oh, you know, we were in a service provider's office, but now we want to have our own space. We want to hire our own people. We want to have our logo on the building. Can you give us signage?" And these are very, very large, big companies.
It's
and
growth
to
and it's
see and to
expansion.
feel that,
Yeah.
and it's not just they're not just sending the real estate guy. The CEO comes, the VPs are coming. And so that for me was very, very exciting and heartening because it's good not just for developers but also for the country when you have that kind of interest and that kind of energy from the. And these are also mostly shared services or BPOs.
So the question that Joey posed in one of his slides is the pre-leasing, is there a comeback now on the pre-leasing?
Well,
'Cause
I was
we've
joking
seen
with
that.
just like, pre-leasing is back. We haven't seen that in a few
three,
years. Right?
was that 3 years?
36 months.
Yeah.
After
I
36
mean,
months.
I'd love to say we have a new project, and so we don't do pre-leasing because all of our buildings are existing. But that's great, a great metric, because I think at the end of the day, pre-leasing is one of your leading indicators for confidence, right? From the locators, if they're willing to sign up early for new buildings, that's really great news for the industry. But yeah, my frustration is we don't have any new projects. Unfortunately, it's been very, very difficult for office building developers to look at new developments in Makati and BGC because of land prices. They have just really gone up so high. It's very hard to make the numbers work.
So do you think with the Masaya redevelopment scheme and the new allowable land uses now and the increased FARs for, let's say, for office, you think that's going to start the ball rolling?
Yes,
for
I think that's it's really a great initiative by Makati to unlock more opportunities for development. I think it's an overall very positive. But I like the slide you put up. You know, when there are density, so for the audience who are not familiar, when you cap density for a city for developments, you're not doing that just because you feel like it. The reason for that is the underlying infrastructure for communities and cities can only take so much, right? If you double the density in a particular neighborhood and you don't have the supporting infrastructure for transportation, for water, for power, for telecoms, all of these different things, what happens is chaos, right? So the challenge, I think, and you put it up there, is yes, we can increase density. Yes, we can increase the buildable area of these neighborhoods and cities. But is the investment in the infrastructure necessary to support all of this coming with that, diba? So you can't take one without the other. So I think your slide is very good. In fact, I would say that the most important of all of that, if you talk about office for me, is transportation. Because if you ask me, people always say, "Oh, Raymond, what's the biggest enemy of this, work from home, hybrid, remote work?" I said it's not that employees and managers can't agree. It's the reality is that it's painful to commute in Metro Manila. When I have an employee who says, "Sir, 2 hours ako one way to come to the office, 2 hours pa uwi." 4 hours a day, who wants to go through that? So you can understand why employees don't want to come into the office every day. Plus, they have to pay pa. So you're already spending 4 hours of your day in very crappy transportation, and then you have to pay pa for it. And then it's money out. So I think for office, our biggest challenge in getting offices to really become successful, it's not that people don't want to be in the office. I think we're social people love coming to the office. It's we have to fix our transportation. We have to be able to give people a cheaper, more comfortable, more reliable way to get from where they live to the office. If we solve that problem, I don't think remote work's gonna be an issue because even when I talk to a lot of the people who work at a lot of companies, they like their office mates generally. They like coming to the office. They like the feeling. But the problem is, wow, the hours every day, super traffic, and then magastos pa. And then sometimes it's they're in a UV Express, tapos dikit-dikit pa. Diba? I mean, it's nakawawa talaga yung mga office workers, and I think that's a problem we really need to solve. I mean, I know there's work on the subway. I know there's a lot of happening with the government side on these infrastructure projects, but that is a puzzle that we have to really solve. It's only going to get worse. We add density, we add building more buildings, we add doing all of these real estate projects. The problem is only going to get worse, right? Traffic will get worse, and the commutes are going to get worse.
There was one item there that we kind of touched on a while ago on the sustainability. I think that's something that they kind of missed on. If you're going to give bonus FARs on breezeways and civic plazas, you might as well put in the metrics for sustainability because it is.
Thank you, Richard.
Because
absolutely.
Diba? Because
yes, tama.
in Singapore they do. If
Yes.
you do get your LEED, platinum, or whatever,
Correct.
then that's when you get your bonus FARs.
Yes.
Here, it's put a breezeway. But my question is, we have breezeways in some buildings,
Yeah.
but they don't allow people to actually cut through.
Yes.
You've seen that here in Makati CBD,
Yeah.
right?
Or my favorite, it's a public park, but then my fence. You can't naman enter the public park because they put a fence. So
Correct.
it's a green area. Nice park. Pero di ka naman makapasok kasi naka-fence
Correct.
yung buong park, di ba? So, I completely agree. I think if Masaya still has opportunity to include sustainability requirements and metrics into this mix, I think it's very good. Because imagine if you can build 2.6 million square meters additional GFA, if you can influence how that 2.6 million is going to be designed, built, and operated, so that instead of doing the traditional way of doing it, we are moving forward and saying, let's do greener, more sustainable developments, then I think it's a win for everyone. So you add the density, but you're building better quality buildings that are better for the people who live, work, and play with them, better for the communities that have these buildings, better for the cities where these communities are. So I think it's a great way to really influence the development, and you don't have to always make it so difficult, right? It's a simple carrot and stick. Like if I was to look at those regulations, say you want to get up to this FAR, you want to do it the normal way, that's fine. You want to get more than that, you have to have a certain level of green. I would even go so far to say, you want the full, you have to be net zero. You have to prove that you can decarbonize and that you're going to negate your carbon footprint, at least from your operations. Because the carbon footprint of those bigger buildings is going to be another thing we're going to have to deal with, diba? I mean, so we worked very
And to
hard.
demolish the old ones, that's another one,
Another
right?
one. So we worked very hard with NEO and the Philippine Green Building Council on pushing net zero certification in the Philippines because we need to really demonstrate that it's not just about green buildings but about decarbonized buildings. And yet, how many buildings do you see have net zero certification? Very few. Very, very few. The ones who have it are not even the big developers. It's all of us second-tier developers who are doing this extra effort and work. So I would really love to see some developers make that commitment to say, not only are we doing green buildings, we are doing net zero buildings. We've done it with our 7 existing buildings. It's doable. It's not rocket science. It's not going to cost a lot of money. You can achieve this, diba? And yet it's not happening. So if you could include that in the Masaya regulation, say, you want to get to this level, normal, fine. You want to get to this level, dapat green. If you want to get here, you should be net zero. Then I think we can start to really influence the kind of developments we see moving forward.
And there's no ifs and buts about it because it becomes quantifiable.
It's third party. It's
Correct.
third party. You either have a certificate that
Or
shows
not.
you have it or you don't, right? It's not
up for debate.
and it's not, it's a private world recognized let's say if it's PhilGBC or LEED or any of these other rating tools, these are all globally recognized tools and certifications. It's not someone's, I'm going to be the one to just endorse you or whatever, diba?
My concern is with the new restrictions, the easy way out for the developers is just to do residential. Because from an 8, I'll just do and I can do a residential now in Ayala Avenue.
But
Right.
even in
That-
residential,
They should have had.
so our frustration at the Philippine Green Building Council is office buildings is the leading asset class for green and sustainable buildings. But people come to the office and stay there for a few hours per day. What about our shopping malls? What about our hospitals? What about our residential buildings? People spend a lot of time in these buildings as well. How many of them have green building certifications? Very few. People live in buildings. You have kids who are growing up in these buildings, families that stay there for sometimes generations, and they are not green, they are not sustainable, or at least not rated to be. Why is that? Diba? It's kind of, for me, it shouldn't just be offices that are green and sustainable. It should be all of our buildings. And yet, in the residential sector, you're saying, exactly, people just build residential kasi
Sell it off
they don't
and
need
that's it,
to.
right?
And then the developers will say, wala naman akong premium kasi pag nag-green yung project, diba? Well,
But that should change now
But-
with the prices that we're seeing, right?
But my
500,
point
600.
is, you have to be ahead of the curve, right? So I'm hoping that some of the more progressive developers, I mean, Arthalan is one. Arthalan is one of the few developers that I really admire because all of the residential projects are green. And yet, Arthalan's not a huge developer. Definitely not compared to the other big ones. Diba? So I really hope even the residential buildings start to say, we need to get at least green building certification, diba? We have Verde, you have LEED, you have so many options, diba?
So, Raymond, does it really get difficult to go sustainable when they become big?
No. And in fact, a lot of them will use cost as a reason. And we've already done the studies. It does not cost you. If you're going to just get the lowest level of certification, 1 star, walang cost premium. It just takes extra effort. It just means you have to invest the time and energy as a developer to educate your team, tell your consultants, design it as a green building from the very beginning, tell your contractors it has to be built this way, and you can do it without cost. If you're going for a 1 star, that's okay. Pwede na yun, di ba? But I don't know, a lot of developers still feel that, it's going to be so much more expensive. And I don't think we can justify it in the budget. And so that is kind of, for me, quite sad because we're talking about, and we're talking about people's homes, diba?
Yes,
I mean, people deserve a green, sustainable home. I think that's something that everybody deserves, right? At any price point, diba?
At any price point. I like that thing because I think the sustainability shouldn't be relegated to the luxury.
Arkin, maybe you can go around, ask questions to Raymond from the audience. If you have any questions on sustainability or the new buildings, how they're able to have 100% occupancy for their 4 buildings.
Correction, I wish we were at 100%.
For a second,
we're at
96.
96. So we're happy that we are generally doing quite well. We're not at 100. I hope we can get. We haven't been at 100 for a while. It continues to be a struggle, but I hope we can get there. But at 96, I'd like to think the reason why our occupancy is pretty good is because at the end of the day, the sustainability efforts I think that we do and the commitments we make, I think that resonates with a lot of the locators. Yeah, so I think there is. That's why I always like to say there's a business case to all of this. Even if you say, okay, I don't. It's nice to be green, sustainable. It's nice PR marketing. I venture out to say, if you're in a real estate developer and you're in business, this is a very, very powerful differentiator. I mean, I can honestly say we have closed leases with tenants because we were greener than the competition, because we had a deeper commitment to sustainability than the other options, and that resonates with tenants, right? So I think there's a very strong business case. I mean, I'm not saying let's all be tree huggers and let's just all go green for the sake of it. There's a very, very strong business case for this as well, right? So if you don't do it because of the advocacy, do it because it makes financial sense, right?
Thank
Thank
you. I
you,
think we have a question
Okay, so
from
we
the
have
audience.
a question over here. Sir, please state your name and your company. Good afternoon. I am Sunny Dukay from the Subdivision and Housing Developers
Hi, Sunny.
Association.
Nice to see you again.
Yes, it's nice to see you. I'm happy to see you and hear you again. The Subdivision and Housing Developers Association is one and supportive of the advocacy of Mr. Rufino with respect to sustainability and green building. Now, it is very important and timely and very relevant, especially of what we are experiencing right now. My query is that, is there an effort on our part, on your part also, NEO, to prod also the government, specifically the policy and the legislative bodies, so that this can be instituted not just with the government, especially the local government units, but the private sector as well?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, so we course a lot of our efforts to the Philippine Green Building Council because it really needs it's very hard if you're just one private company trying to push for this. So we collaborate with a lot of other industry partners at the Philippine Green Building Council precisely to advocate for legislation both at the national and the local level. Very sunny, it's very frustrating. So I'll just give you an example. The Philippine Green Building Council have already developed a green building framework. We can go to any LGU, and if the mayor and the leadership of the LGU is willing, we can help them create a green building roadmap and framework and plan for their municipality, just like the city of Mandaue has. Very, very, it's not perfect, but it's got great momentum. And yet, we have so many meetings with so many LGUs, and nothing happens. We'll go present, we'll offer it, we'll say we can help you, we can do this for you. And then we'll keep talking. Before we know it, election na. And then it's a whole new set of people, and then we have to tell them again, this is important for your city that you introduce ordinances to help promote and incentivize green buildings, and then election na naman. so it's very frustrating. We try, but there's only so much we can do. Luckily, and I'm very proud of this actually, we're getting the most traction in Cebu. We actually, parang medyo, pagod na kami sa Metro Manila. We have tried so many cities in Metro Manila. So we're actually, Mandaue is great. We're now having discussions with Cebu City, with Cordoba. We're actually getting more momentum. Mas okay pa sa Cebu. Mas progressive, mas open-minded. The leadership in some of these cities, for me, is even better when it comes to green building and sustainability than what we have here in Metro Manila. I mean, I'm sorry if some of you have, connections to some of our LGUs, but I'm being realistic. We've tried so many times. Napagod na kami. Because, there's only so much time and energy we have, and we keep trying. We've talked to all of the big cities. None of these big cities have a single powerful, credible green building framework and plan in place. It's so sad. It really is so sad. It's so sad that Mandaue is light years ahead of Makati, of Taguig, of Quezon City. You take a look at what's happening in Mandaue. It's really quite amazing. They're struggling. It's not easy to be the first to adopt a green building framework at that scale, but they're doing it.
Thanks, Raymond. I think we have questions, Arkin?
Do we have any other questions here for Mr.
None?
Raymond?
If none, we'll go to the sent-in questions. This is for Richard and Julius. Do you see the impact of U.S. tariffs resulting in higher interest rate and eventually affecting the property market? Why or why not?
Are the tariffs actually pushing through? So that's a big question. Maybe, well, at least for the industrial side, we're seeing, because in terms of, the countries here in the region, we have one of the lowest, I guess, because of our most favored nation status. Like, for example, if you compare our 17% tariff to some of our other neighbors here in ASEAN, so Vietnam, I think they're getting taxed at 46%. Thailand, I think it's at 34% or 36%, and then Malaysia is also somewhere in the 30s. So we do have some clients who were actually pulling out of the Philippines, but they're now rethinking their plans. They're actually deciding to either hold off their property sales here because of the tariff mismatch, or they're now starting to rethink and relocate here. So I think we're going to benefit from that. And well, in terms of our exports, like semiconductors, it's our biggest export in terms of dollar value. That is exempt from the tariff, so at least that is a bit safe. But I think in general, at least for industrial and manufacturing, that will have a positive effect in the event that it actually all pushes through.
Thanks, Julius. Related to that, this is a question for Kevin or Richard. How do you see the policy uncertainties in the U.S. affecting the office sectors? Are you seeing an impact on interest from foreign locators or office tenants? Kevin?
Actually, I'm just going to echo what Julius said. No, indirectly, it might even prop up outsourcing because of cost pressures in the U.S. The low-hanging action really is to shift some work to the Philippines in the form of digital services, which are easily transferable. So, as you know, majority of the office occupants in the Philippines are outsourcers. So it would follow that the positive effect. I have a question to Raymond, if I can. So
Sure,
we've been
go
talking
ahead.
about Makati in the report, no? How about BGC? What do you see BGC like in 5-10 years? So what's your take?
More traffic.
For traffic.
Yeah, so I think BGC total density, if I'm not mistaken, is only at about 55-60%. So you guys might think when you walk outside in BGC that, oh, BGC is pretty built up. There's still about 40% of buildable density that is still going to come. And yet, sometimes the traffic here is horrible. Just to get to Uptown, my wife has a clinic in Uptown, and sometimes I'll go pick her up. From this side of the city to Uptown, sometimes it's in the same city, but it takes you so long to get there, diba? So I think we definitely need to address, again, mass transit, public transportation. We need to get people to use cars less and use public transportation more. I think the advantage of BGC is that being a new city, right, you don't have too much redevelopment happening, right? So you get to kind of do a lot of buildings, from the ground up and scratch rather than having to tear down and redevelop. And so I think you will still see a lot of very progressive sort of the newer sort of class of buildings coming up in BGC. So I think that's exciting. I'm really hoping that the subway stops at Market and Uptown, plus all of the efforts being made to try to improve the traffic and access will have effect. But I think ultimately, we need to be able to reduce the number of cars in and out of BGC. That my biggest worry is in 5 to 10 years, if we're not really able to do that, then maybe we should just be walking na lang. Well, the nice thing is BGC is quite walkable, compared to other cities already. So that's a positive. But traffic is going to be one of the major
Parking.
worries. Yeah. Because again, you have too many cars, right? So
All-time high in car sales with BYD
so
offering
one
cars
of
so cheap.
one of my dreams is that our building code finally gets updated where you have a maximum number of cars you can allow to park rather than a minimum. Right? Isn't it crazy that every single building we build has a minimum number of parking spaces? So every time you build a building, you are literally adding more cars on the road for every building you build by law. You cannot build less. You have a minimum number of parking spaces. Most countries around the world have reversed it. They say, nope, you have a maximum, not a minimum. You can have 0 if you want, but you have a maximum. You want to build 1,000 spaces, we're only going to let you build 500 or whatever it is. We have to reverse our mindset, but you can only do it if you have an alternative to cars. You can't do it and say, oh, we're gonna put maximum limit, but then wala kang public transport, wala kang mass transit, wala namang options yung mga tao. So you can't do it. So you need to have these, both things need to come together. So I think mass transit, public transportation, plus reducing the parking spaces in buildings that are being required will help us improve traffic in the cities. But you can't do one without the other. So my dream nga in the future is an office building with only parking for the visitors. That's my dream. Yeah, that's my dream. You ask any developer, we don't make money on parking. Anyway, we don't. And yet it creates pollution on the streets, it creates traffic for the streets. I would rather most of the people come to the building walking from the bus stop or the train or get dropped off, diba? And then move on, diba? And then leave the parking in the building just for visitors. Sana ganon. That would be a dream one day, diba? We could all dream and hope, diba? We could all, maybe for our kids. Baka natin, baka yung mga anak na lang natin yung may ganon, diba?
Thanks, Raymond. This is a question for Tim. Tim, this is from Avon Manankil of Vista. Please provide us your insights on the take-up of vertical developments outside of NCR. I think I already discussed some, but Tim, you might want to sum it up for Avon.
Well, for outside NCR, the ones that are really doing well are leisure-oriented, condominium developments, so resort types or leisure-oriented. There are condominium-type developments within mixed-use estates, but the performance of that is still also mixed. That's probably because there's still a lot of horizontal developments, house and lot developments in the area that sort of compete for the same market. But the potential for that one is also good, especially for the lower segments. So in certain areas or certain developments where the land values are already quite high, we've seen condominium developments in the affordable doing well, also being taken up quite fast because of the price disparity between the housing, the condominium prices versus the lot only developments. I think that's it. Condominium developments usually perform well if they're part of a mixed-use development or near commercial areas, if it's outside Metro Manila.
Thanks, Tim. Well, Avon, you mentioned, and as discussed by Tim, the resort-themed projects are very attractive. I remember when I was in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for Vista, among the more attractive projects there were your Escana in Boracay, as well as that project in Palawan. This is a question for Paul. Paul, how will the Makati rezoning impact the land values in Makati CBD?
Yeah, so value is really a function of its utility. So once we increase the utility or use of a certain area, most probably land values will follow. So the only issue right now is the overall property metrics that we see, from office vacancies to residential condo take-up, are not doing so well. But eventually, all of these will settle and normalize, and whatever increase in FAR that we do put in these areas will likely see a proportionate increase in value as well.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Orkin?
We have one more question for Sir Joey.
Okay. Again, thank you, Mr. Joey, for that comprehensive presentation on the real estate. But what struck me and a little bothered and apprehensive was your statement that the government has a plan to increase the capital gains tax from 6% to 10%. You know, this move will have adverse effect on the small gains that the housing industry has done. And you know, it will discourage more investments and production. And in fact, in SHEDA, we espouse for a more conscientious valuation of property instead of increasing taxes. And you know, I am bothered, and we are bothered that because of this statement, you know, a blogger after this event might pick up and say Colliers and Mr. Roi Bondoc stated that there's a plan of the government to increase capital gains tax. You know, we checked with the Department of Finance, And they said that they have no plans. We also checked on that bill, the CEMEPA, the Capital Market Efficiency Promotion Act, and there's no any part of that law that says that there is an increase in the capital gains tax or any plan. Now, we are wondering, or I'm wondering whether you might have or you may have a source where you got that information.
Well, sir, that the proposal to raise capital gains tax from 6% to 10%, it's one of the proposals of the Department of Finance. As I mentioned, that they're planning to raise tax revenues for the government, 200 billion from 2025 up to 2030. And you're correct. We have yet to see a bill actually filed in the Senate and House of Representatives, which I also mentioned earlier. I understand that this is the amended PIFITA, which actually reached advanced stages of legislation in the previous Congress, 18th Congress. So this is the Passive Income and Financial Investment Tax Act, right? And you're correct. We have not seen this, and given that we're already towards the end of the 19th Congress, we'll be having our elections soon. This is unlikely to be enacted this year. But we need to watch out for the filing of a bill in 2022 once the 20th Congress opens. Because you're correct, it will have substantial impact, negative impact on the Philippine property market. It's like putting an investor in between a rock and a hard place. Not Hard Rock, because that's Maricris's favorite cafe. But I think we don't have to extract blood from a stone, right? So I think that's a message that we have for this.
Maybe now's the time to make some noise and let some of our legislators know how this could negatively
To be
impact.
proactive about it, right?
I think, Sani, you should ask your members to already, especially everyone in that residential sector. I think the government needs to hear your perspective and how this is going to be very, very painful for not only for you, but for everyone. Everyone who ever viewed buying residential units or properties as a investment is going to feel a lot of pain from this. It's a 70% increase.
And I think what's happening right now is a lot of people who are selling, particularly condos, are actually paying on zonal. They're not even paying on the selling price right now.
And it's a double hit.
technically they're paying higher than the 6% right now because they're already paying on a higher zonal value.
Yeah.
So if you now still put this, it's going to be a higher amount. So I agree with Raymond. We need to be proactive and just say that, this does not bode well for our industry.
For our last question, Julius from Cherry of Ayala. And moving forward, where do you recommend property investors to put their capital for 2025? 100 million and up, 20 million and up, below 20 million.
Wow.
Okay, I think for those price points,
Wow. Okay.
I think those are more for residential investments. And I think from Joey's presentation earlier, there's a lot of like discounts to be had, right? I mean, this is a perfect time for you to look for options on the residential side, on the RFO side, and you could actually go to like an agent and negotiate for better deals. For those price points on the commercial side, I think it'd be hard pressed to find properties unless if it's on a strata titled office space. And again, it's a similar story compared to residential. There are a lot of options on the secondary market for office condo offices. And from what we've been seeing lately, there actually is a demand for this kind of development. So there's a lot of that in the various CBDs, and here in BGC, in Makati, there's some in Ortigas. There are a lot of options that actually make sense on a yield basis. So I would say that you could take a look at that.
Thank you, Julius. And thank you to all our Colliers experts, Joey, Kevin, Paul, Tim, Richard, Raymundo, and of course our special guest, Raymond Rufino, for providing us with useful insights and recommendations as we face very promising months ahead. We would like to once again thank our event partner, official venue, the Ascott BGC. And to officially close our program, let's hear some final remarks from our Managing Director, Mr. Richard Raymundo.
Again, I'd just like to thank Raymond here. Truly, it was a very interesting discussion. You gave a different angle to our panel, and you brought up really good points. That's really unique coming from a developer. Again, you've seen the numbers. Office, we're seeing nascent signs of really good recovery, particularly in Makati and Fort Bonifacio. We're even seeing pre-leasing, like your building, Jericho, where that was an amazing insight. Residential, while there is some oversupply, there are areas which are doing much better than the others. And of course, retail has always been one of the stronger sectors. Again, should you need information or you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us, and the people here in the panel would be very happy to discuss with you. Again, thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you in the next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you again, Richard. Thank you, everyone. We have food outside, so please do stay. Thank you, everyone. And Colliers team with Raymond, please stay on stage for a group photo.